welcome to the Rosse Bespoke YouTube channel. Today I am very privileged because I am on location in one of the most beautiful locations in Scotland. We are in Turin Castle, just outside Angus, and I've got the rare opportunity to speak to a lady of the house. So today I'm going to be speaking to the person that's actually giving butlers their jobs and roles. So I hope you've all got your pen and paper ready so you can learn what it is that people look for when they're hiring staff. Yvonne Corbett of Turin Castle, thank you so much for joining us today.
Absolute pleasure, Simeon.
Yvonne, please tell me about this beautiful castle where we are today, and maybe a bit about the history and how you came to be lady of the house.
Our family purchased the castle 6 years ago. We lived overseas for 23 years and came back to Scotland and wanted a project, and I've always been involved in hospitality. So Turin seemed a perfect location, and we opened to do destination weddings and private use for clients who want to enjoy Scotland in their own castle. It was built in 1659, and the interesting part was it was moved brick by brick in 1900. It took 7 years to move it, and each and every brick in the castle is numbered. And it was completed in 1907, so it's got quite a lovely story behind it, and now we've got a great view of the glens actually from the windows, as opposed to the castle used to be on a loch.
Wow, I mean, that is an absolutely fascinating story. I mean, it is such a beautiful location. I mean, what we're going to do now is we're just going to cut to some images of the castle, just so you can all see just how grand and stunning this place is. Going on here, and we've got 10 state bedrooms, we've got staff accommodations, acres of land, formal dining rooms, silver collections, antiques, swimming pool, wellness centre. I mean, there's a lot to run here. I mean, is this too difficult to find staff who can cope with this level of things going on?
Yes, sometimes it's hard to source staff, but we've got some excellent teams, and we create a bespoke team for each group that's in. So we don't have full-time staff, we prefer to hire in experts that fit the client specifically. So we bring them from all over the UK, and we use reputable companies to supply us with staff. So we've got a very small core team that know the property inside out, and then we use the same outsourced companies to help us out with our clients, because we run a different range of events. We do small weddings, and we host Russian, Chinese, Middle Eastern and American groups. So we require a different team each time. So it's much better for us to hire a team to suit the client.
And I think that's really interesting, Yvonne, and I think we are looking at the evolution of staffing, because this way of staffing a property is getting more and more popular. You know, you're looking at bringing people in to accomplish specific tasks, specific roles within the sort of umbrella of what you do. So when you're bringing these people in, especially if we think about butlers now specifically, you know, what do you think are the key attributes of a butler?
The perfect butler is the epitome of diplomacy. They've got to be supremely flexible, especially at Turin. They've got to be absolutely honest, but at the end of the day we want a sense of humour at Turin. because that, to be part of the team here, the clients love when they see a great chemistry between the team. So we like to use the same people to bring them in that know the property inside out, and they'll adapt to the client. So that's what we love. And we find that to bring in the team is much more effective than having someone full-time that deals with different characters. We match people, basically. That's the secret at Turin. Well, obviously, a high degree of experience is required. We're dealing with a lot of high net worth clients here. So I need someone who's got an excellent background in wine knowledge and silver service, and just basically someone who's used to being around the type of clients that we host at Turin. Professionalism, loyalty, honesty, the same as I would say for the team integrity that we require here. And I'm a pretty good reader of people anyway. It's part of my job to read people's personality. So when I meet people, you get a general, the first impression is probably the most important, because that's what the client's going to see as soon as they step into the property. So someone smartly dressed, someone with the right attitude, you can tell straight away, I think, and then build on everything else. So there's a lot to learn within Turin itself as to the working of how we like it at Turin, but the professionalism of our teams is integral to how we run our business. So,
moving on to my next question, which kind of comes from that. So, we've spoken a lot about private butlers, but, a small step from what the private butlers are doing for you here, we also have, of course, hotel and resort butlers. Now, do you find their skills need to be the same as private butlers, or do you think it's something that's different, separate?
To be honest, I think it's a completely different thing, because this is not a hotel, it's not a resort. This is a private home for our clients, basically, and we like them to call it home. So for a private butler here, it's much more of a bespoke, tailored service for the client. When they arrive, they're welcomed, their bags are unpacked, ironing is done for them, everything to the last detail is taken care of. A resort butler perhaps has maybe more guests to look after. We're much more of a private butler is a jack of all trades at the top of his game. I mean, he has to be a sommelier, he has to be an advisor, he has to be discreet, he has to be a concierge, he has to be absolutely everything. Whereas in a resort, there's a bigger team, so I think maybe it's just a completely different thing, basically.
Yeah, I know. I think you're spot on. It's different. When we staff Turin Castle, it has a different feel. It has that private house feel. Was that important to you? When people maybe just talk us through the process of how people hire the castle and why people hire the castle, and how did that affect your decision making to have a private house team, a private butler, housekeepers, and run it in that style?
Absolutely. It was a little bit of a learning curve, to be honest. I could just see that there was a real gap in the market, because you've got the world of Airbnb and you've got the world of hotels. And in between there's a term called exclusive use. So that has become for me more of a managed exclusive use. So it's a private use of a private castle. There's no one else in here, it's just your group. A group of shooters or just an off-site conference. So it became very clear to me that because the dynamics of a group from the Middle East are so different to the dynamics of a group from California, that I would then handpick the butler service to fit the client. And then I saw it was the same perhaps with housekeeping, it was the same with the front of house team. So we're very different from most other properties. I mean, there are a number in Scotland that do what I do, and they do it beautifully. But it's just clients, we love them to be surprised. So they're always amazed at what we do for them extra. We like to over-deliver, and we like to have a team that's supremely flexible and energized into joining us to take the client on the journey that we like to provide at Turin.
Yvonne, as you mentioned, you've lived all around the world. Do you find that attitudes are different to having staff in other countries compared to here in the UK?
Absolutely, Simeon. We lived all over Asia for many, many years and ultimately lived in Africa. And it's quite a different understanding there of staff, because it's an expectation in those countries that you give jobs to local people. It was almost a requirement, and you felt like you were contributing to the economy. Everyone, and particularly in Indonesia, everyone had many staff, more than they even needed, but it was the done thing. There was a lot of unemployment, so you were helping the economy. Whereas in the UK, it's quite different. The thought that people have a butler, there's perhaps an expectation that you have to have a big property to have a butler, but I think it's becoming more and more the norm for properties like this to offer butler service, and we're very happy to be aligned with your company and to be able to use the experienced staff that you supply us with. So I think it's getting more and more popular.
So that's definitely something that I've noticed. If we were to go back in time to the UK, 100, maybe even as little as 50 years ago, we'd notice a real step change. And certainly in the sort of 1900s, 1920s, again, there was that expectation that if people had money, they should employ a lot of people. They needed to employ gardeners, they needed to employ butlers, other staff. And not only did that make their lives obviously easier and better, it also helped the economy. It meant that people had jobs. Whereas, now I think people are trying to take too much on themselves. They're becoming very time poor. I've got another video coming up, by the way, about time famine and how that can affect people's wellness. But I feel that people are taking a lot on themselves, so maybe they need to look at that sort of international attitude and think about that here in the UK. So Yvonne, would you say there's one phrase that sums up Turin Castle?
It would have to be too much is never enough.
Wow, there we go, and too much is definitely never enough, as I'm sat here in the absolutely stunning library at Turin Castle. What we'll do, as we leave the video today, I'm going to show you some more shots. I've got some fantastic drone shots and stuff of the castle, and you're going to absolutely love them. But I would just like to say a huge thank you, Yvonne, for letting us all into your stunning home today and hear your sort of advice for butlers and your rationale for using butlers. So I really hope everyone's enjoyed that. Thank you so much, Yvonne.
Absolute pleasure, Simeon.
Thank you very much for joining me today. If you enjoyed this video and you'd like to see other videos on the channel, please make sure you subscribe to the channel. If you enjoyed it, please hit the like button. To be honest, even if you didn't like it, please hit the like button anyway, because it'll do me a big favour. So thank you very much for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you for the next video on the Rosse Bespoke Butlers YouTube channel. Thanks very much, and bye-bye.